The last thing anyone expected to see that night was the company's powerful Sue, being carried through the silent hallway in the arms of the single father she had barely noticed for months. Her head rested against his shoulder, her breathing shallow, her usually perfect appearance completely gone beneath exhaustion. Her fingers were loosely curled around his shirt as if, even in sleep, some part of her was terrified of being left alone. And the man carrying her was not her driver, not a security guard, and certainly not someone from her wealthy inner circle. He was Noah Bennett, a quiet maintenance employee who worked late shifts because he had a little daughter waiting for him at home. What nobody knew was that before sunrise, Noah would make a decision that would change both their lives forever. If stories about second chances, kindness, and unexpected human connections mean something to you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Bright Acts for more stories that remind us that one small act of kindness can change everything. Noah had never imagined that his life would bring him anywhere near the top floor of a company like Sterling Horizon. He was 36, a single father, and had learned years earlier that pride did not pay rent or buy medicine when a child had a fever. His wife had passed away after a sudden illness, leaving him with their 6-year-old daughter, Lily, and a mountain of responsibilities he had never expected to carry alone. Noah worked 2 jobs, repaired office equipment during the day, and took overnight maintenance shifts whenever he could. He rarely complained. His greatest reward was coming home in the morning and finding Lily asleep with one of her storybooks beside her. To her, her father was not poor or tired. He was simply the safest person in the world. Across the same building lived an entirely different reality. Evelyn Hart, the 41-year-old CEO of Sterling Horizon, was known for turning failing companies into profitable ones. Investors admired her discipline, employees feared her sharp standards, and newspapers called her unstoppable. But behind closed doors, Evelyn was running on almost nothing. Her father had recently suffered a serious stroke, her mother had died years earlier, and the company was facing its biggest financial crisis in decades. For weeks, Evelyn had been sleeping only a few hours a night. She stopped eating properly, ignored headaches, and refused every suggestion that she should slow down. She believed weakness was a luxury she could not afford. Noah first noticed something was wrong on a rainy Thursday evening. The entire executive floor had emptied, but Evelyn was still sitting alone inside the glass conference room. Documents were scattered across the table, her laptop glowing against the darkness. Noah was repairing a faulty ventilation panel nearby when he saw her press 2 fingers against her temple. She stood, took 1 step, and suddenly grabbed the edge of the table. Noah rushed toward her, but she insisted she was fine. He did not argue. Instead, he quietly brought her a bottle of water and waited until she sat down again. She looked at him differently that night, perhaps because he had helped her without asking who she was or what she could give him. The following week became worse. Evelyn discovered that someone inside the company had been secretly moving money through a chain of shell accounts. The losses were enormous, and if the truth became public before she could prove who was responsible, thousands of employees could lose their jobs. She stayed at the office night after night, determined to uncover the betrayal herself. Noah began seeing her asleep at her desk during his late shifts. Sometimes he left a cup of warm tea nearby. Sometimes he placed a small sandwich beside her computer without saying anything. Evelyn never thanked him directly, but the food always disappeared. One night, Noah received a call from Lily's school. His daughter had fallen during a playground game and hurt her wrist. His heart nearly stopped. He left work immediately, took her to the clinic, and spent hours beside her while the doctor confirmed that she had only suffered a minor fracture. When Noah returned to the office the next morning, exhausted and worried about missing hours, he expected trouble. Instead, he found Evelyn waiting near the maintenance room. She had somehow learned what happened. She did not lecture him about leaving early. She simply asked whether Lily was all right. Noah nodded, surprised by the genuine concern in her eyes. For the first time, he realized the woman everyone considered cold was carrying pain of her own. 3 nights later, the storm arrived. Rain hammered against the windows, lightning illuminated the city, and the building seemed strangely empty. Noah was finishing his final inspection when he noticed that the lights in Evelyn's office were still on. He went upstairs and found her standing beside the window, staring at the city. She looked pale. Her phone was on the floor, and one hand was trembling. Before Noah could reach her, Her knees gave way. He caught her just before she hit the ground. She was completely exhausted. Her body felt frighteningly weak in his arms, and for a moment Noah panicked. He checked her breathing and realized she had simply collapsed from exhaustion. Her phone showed dozens of unanswered calls and messages, but there was nobody else in the building who could help. Noah knew he could not leave her on the cold office floor. He carefully lifted her into his arms and carried her toward the private executive suite. The hallway seemed endless. Evelyn's head rested against his shoulder, and her hand instinctively gripped the fabric of his shirt. Noah carried her slowly, worried that any sudden movement might wake her or make her condition worse. He placed her gently on the bed, pulled a blanket over her, and reached for a glass of water. Just as he turned away, her fingers suddenly tightened around his hand. Noah froze. Evelyn was still asleep. Her face, usually controlled and confident, looked strangely vulnerable. A tear had slipped silently down her cheek. Her lips moved as though she were trying to say something, but no words came. Noah sat beside the bed because he could not bring himself to pull his hand away while she was frightened and unconscious. Minutes passed, then an hour. The storm continued outside, but inside the room there was only the quiet sound of rain and Evelyn's breathing. Near dawn, her eyes opened. She looked at Noah, then at their hands. For several seconds, neither moved. Evelyn seemed confused, as though she could not understand why the person sitting beside her was the one employee she had never expected to trust. Then she remembered the storm, the collapse, and his arms carrying her through the hallway. Her eyes filled with tears. She finally understood something that frightened her more than any financial crisis. She had spent years surrounding herself with people who wanted something from her, while the one person who had given her genuine kindness expected absolutely nothing. But the story was far from over. That same morning, Noah discovered something inside the maintenance records that changed everything. While repairing the ventilation system days earlier, he had noticed unusual access activity connected to a restricted server room. He had written down the times because something seemed wrong. When Evelyn saw the records, she realized they matched the exact hours when money had been transferred from company accounts. Together, they followed the evidence. The betrayal came from a senior executive who had been manipulating the company's finances and preparing to blame Evelyn when the losses became public. Noah's simple maintenance records became the missing piece investigators needed. Evelyn finally had proof, and Sterling Horizon was saved from collapse. Yet the greatest change happened outside the boardroom. Evelyn began visiting Lily occasionally, not as a CEO, but as a woman who had discovered what family could feel like again. She helped Noah establish a scholarship fund for children of struggling employees. Noah was offered a senior position in facilities management, but he accepted only after making sure he could still spend evenings with Lily. Evelyn respected that decision more than any business accomplishment he had ever made. Months later, Evelyn stood outside Noah's small home, holding a birthday cake for Lily. The little girl ran into her arms, laughing. Noah watched from the doorway, smiling quietly. He had once believed his life had been reduced to survival after losing his wife. Evelyn had once believed success meant never needing anyone. Somehow, two broken people had taught each other the same lesson. Strength was not about carrying everything alone. Sometimes strength was allowing someone else to hold your hand when you were too tired to stand. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes kindness no longer matters, and subscribe to Bright Acts. Your support helps these stories reach people who may desperately need a reminder that life can still offer a second chance. And before you leave, comment, "Kindness always finds a way," if you believe one small act of compassion can change a person's entire life. Because sometimes the person who saves us is not the richest, the strongest, or the most powerful person in the room. Sometimes it is simply the exhausted single father who sees someone else hurting, reaches out his hand, and refuses to let go.